Great. All right, good evening, guys. I'm happy to say that we have all made it here through the snow, and we have missed 3 meetings in a row. That was our cushion. So I'm hoping we have no more inclement weather, but we'll deal with it as we face it. Anyway. Let me just briefly describe the schedule for the rest of this month. It keeps shifting around on me. But we have, tonight we have all the budgets that the town administrators and the town accountant are responsible for. Tomorrow night, we will have consolidated facilities and the planning board, and then we will review some of the non-budgetary articles with our planning director, Bill Clark. On Monday, the 9th, we'll have Council on Aging and the library, and hope that they can make it. I understand more snow is predicted for Sunday and Monday. And the Council on Aging has been postponed 3 times, I think, now. At any rate, that'll be Monday. Wednesday, we'll have the cemetery and the fire department. The following week, we will have nothing on Monday, that's a holiday. We'll have the DPW on Wednesday the 18th and the police department on the 19th. And I believe we'll also have Thursday the 12th, we'll be meeting with the schools.
Okay.
Thursday, February 12th?
Thursday, February 12th. So we have a busy schedule. Pretty much Monday the 23rd. I hope there won't be any budgets that we haven't discussed, and we may be able to put some finishing touches on our budget presentation to the town, which will happen on Wednesday, February 25th at 6:30 at the Milton High School gym. So we have a lot of ground to cover, and I don't know, any questions on the schedule for the moment? I've left out retirement. I'm hoping to get Kevin Cleary in either on the 18th or 19th, right at the beginning. Blue Hills will probably come in March sometime, because they only have a very preliminary number for us at the moment. And I don't think I've left anybody out, but correct me if I'm wrong. So that's where we stand at the moment, and if there are no questions, then I'd love to invite Anne Marie Fagan, Amy Dexter, and Michael Blanchard to the table, and we'll begin with, we'll go through the 11 budgets they represent, and we'll do it alphabetically, and we'll start with the central business office. But first, Anne Marie will tell us about a reorganization plan that was pretty much implemented by now, I think. And it affected the central business office and the treasurer's office and the DPW and the selectman's office. So if you'd like to tell us all about that, because, and we'll revisit the effects on each budget as we hit them. Thanks.
Well, thank you for having us. We're happy to be here and to explain our budgets to all of you. I did send to Darnell a copy of a letter that was sent to the Board of Selectmen and the Personnel Board, which outlined the reasons behind this reorganization plan that we implemented back in December. What we tried to do is we tried to realign duties and tasks and put them into departments which to us made sense for what that department's mission was. And it did, as Ted said, it involved the Selectman's Office, Consolidated Central Business Office, the DPW, and the Treasurer's Office. What we tried to do was we tried to combine all the water and sewer functions under one umbrella, under the DPW. So we took an employee that was in the central business office as a senior admin clerk for water and sewer, and we moved that employee. She didn't change her location, she just changed who she reported to, and she now reports to the DPW director. We improved customer service by streamlining where you have to, when residents have to come to town hall and where they have to pay their bills. Prior to this reorganization, bills were paid up in the central business office, so trash stickers were purchased up there, water and sewer bills, and parking tickets, recycling bins, compost bins. So what we did was we felt that all of those purchases should be really under the umbrella of collections under the treasurer's office. So we moved those duties, the parking clerk duties, the purchase of stickers, trash bins, and recycling bins to the treasurer's office. We addressed some of the financial management recommendations in the DOR report by creating a financial analyst position in the central business office. And we improved this is near and dear to my heart, is improve the HR department and the HR functions and we're trying to put everything under one umbrella, under our assistant town administrator. And we took the health insurance benefit piece that was being handled by the assistant town treasurer. We transferred all those duties up and under the assistant town administrator. So what we did was we eliminated a senior admin clerk in the central business office, and we transferred a senior admin clerk for water and sewer from the central business office to the DPW office. And we created, as I had said earlier, a financial analyst position. We also, because we moved a lot of the duties to the treasurer's office that require a lot of customer service and a lot of interaction with the public, we increased a principal clerk in that department to a level 4 senior admin clerk. And and I can just outline what the reorganization resulted in with respect to alignment of duties. Again, as I had said earlier, the parking clerk responsibilities are now transferred, and they're now handled by the treasurer's office. The trash sticker, recycling, compost bins, again, are now handled by the treasurer's office. Work and compensation audit is transferred from the town accountant to the assistant town treasurer's position. Unemployment responsibilities are transferred from the assistant town accountant position to the assistant town treasurer's position. Payroll backup and support is transferred from the assistant town accountant position to the assistant town treasurer's position. Processing of licensing permits under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen and coordination of utility company conduits and poll petitions are transferred from the executive secretary in the Selectman's office to a newly created position in the Selectman's office of licensing and benefit assistance to the assistant town administrator. Any questions?
Okay, I've got Steve and then Darnell, and I'll jump in at some point. Go ahead,
Okay.
Steve.
Just a quick one, what percentage of bills are paid in person at town hall these days with the mailing available and the online option available?
I don't have that on hand, but I can get that for you. Parking tickets, we still get a lot of foot traffic for parking ticket payments. Trash stickers, still a lot of people come to the counter requesting to purchase those. So, but I can find out from Amy. You can
From
run a
Jim.
report, Jim?
From the
Well,
town
prior,
treasurer.
well, prior.
Well, you mean
Years.
bills overall, correct? Not just those
The-
that were transferred down?
The assertion was made that you're improving customer service for the people that pay bills in person, and I'm just
Mhm.
trying to see how big of a segment of the population of the town that is at this time, given that there's other options to taking time off and going to town hall.
It's much larger than you think. I think Jim would be able to answer it more, because keep in mind that a lot of the online payments are for current bills only, not past due bills. So, and we have a lot of residents that like to come in, some of the elderly. People like to come in and buy trash stickers at Town Hall rather than go to one of the local merchants that sell them. There's a lot
And the
of,
parking tickets, there's a lot of foot traffic because, as Amy said, those are just current bills, and a lot of people get notices and when they go to renew their license or their registration, that they have outstanding parking tickets which are from prior years, and they have to come in and pay those in person. And they have to pay those with cash, and so what I mean by streamlining the process is, when people would come to the central business office, they would have to pay with cash. No department other than the treasurer's office can take in cash. So that person would have to then go down to the treasurer's office, give them the cash, they would get a voucher, go back up to the central business office, hand the voucher over, and then complete their transaction. So we felt that this was a much more efficient way for someone to come to town hall and to do their business in one office.
Right, and I get that, and if it's, hundreds or thousands of transactions, that's, something that's more noteworthy than if it's just a dozen or so.
Yeah,
it's
I
more
know.
than a dozen a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever taken a poll or I don't know how we'd quantify that, but there is a lot of foot traffic on a daily basis to that office.
Don't know?
Do we increase the total number of personnel in that office with this reorganization? Do we add a body into that office?
Which office?
To the Treasury office?
No, we did not.
You did not?
No.
Yeah, 'cause I was wondering if, with the added duties, did we give them additional coverage? That was
Well, no,
the
because
question.
we took duties away from the assistant town
Okay.
treasurer and brought them upstairs to the selectman's office, so that's why we gave them some other
Low
duties.
balance, okay.
But no additional bodies.
Okay, so when I was looking at this, it makes a lot of sense to rationalize where different tasks are being performed. I think that's great. I did notice that we have one transfer and then 3 sort of personnel moves that replace a new position with an old position, for an old position. One of them in the central business office, there's a jump in 2 levels. In the treasurer's office, there's a jump of 1 level, and in the selectman's office, there's a jump of 3 levels in terms of the SPEA levels of compensation and description. So all in all, we're sort of upgrading the capability here, and I understand that the one position in the CBO's office was fairly essential for giving Amy some support, some real analytic support. I'm curious about the jump in the treasurer's office, why that was necessary, and I'm curious about the 3-level jump in the selectman's office. And I guess a contract and licensing agent merits 3 levels higher, but I'm just wondering what that individual is going to be doing that either wasn't getting done before or was getting done somewhere else, or they're addressing a need that, anyway, that's my question.
No, that's a good question. The one step up in the treasurer's office was that the duties that person was now going to be performing fell in line with all other level 4 positions in the classification plan. The selectman's office, the new contract and licensing agent and benefit assistant position, this was the result of some of the goals and objectives that the Board of Selectmen had asked me to implement. And a couple of those were we in the Selectmen's office have contracts, easements, leases in a drawer, but they're not cataloged, and no one really looks at them to make sure that they're in compliance when they do to expire. If there's payment schedules with those contracts, we don't really have anybody that's really monitoring that. So this licensing agent and benefit assistant will create a matrix of all of the contracts, easements, deeds, leases in the selectman's office, and create a matrix of each contract, what the purpose for the contract is, if there's monetary payments, when those are due, when the expiration, so on and so forth. And then that person will have to monitor those contracts to make sure that they're being followed in compliance with what the intent of the contract, lease, easement is. So
Oh,
that,
we like payment performance too, so that's great.
right.
Um,
We don't want to find out that there's a contract that we're supposed to get paid something for and we're not, from years before. And the problem is the turnover in the selectman's office. Some of these contracts go many years back. Leases go many years back, and easements, takings. So we wanted to bring that system up and have it, like I say, put into a matrix, and to have someone really follow it for compliance purposes. The other important task that this person will be performing is, I think, this is one of Tom Hurley's pet projects, is with liquor licenses. Each liquor license has different requirements and regulations that they're supposed to be adhering to. We don't have the staff currently in the selectman's office to make sure that those compliances and those requirements are being adhered to. So this licensing agent will also put together a matrix in order to follow each store's liquor license requirements. This person will also, because Michael is going to be taking over the health insurance piece, which is every year it seems to become more and more cumbersome, I will lose some of his assistance with contract negotiations and putting together scenarios for me when I'm in handling negotiations. This position will be doing that. Will be creating scenarios for me on spreadsheets, so that I can, as I'm negotiating, know what percentage different scenarios are going to cost the town. This person will put together a program for outreach for boards and committees. We have a great number of residents in this town that give an inordinate amount of time, like yourselves, on volunteer boards. But we need to reach out, because I think we're tapping into the same people all the time, because I think that there's not enough notoriety out there about these boards and committees, and to new people that come into the town, about the different organizations and boards and committees that they can volunteer for. This person will be instrumental in putting together a program to send out for outreach to town residents on boards and committees, and policies and procedures with respect to how we handle boards and committees. So those are some of the duties. This person will also take over some of the duties that were currently being done by the executive secretary for the Board of Selectmen. As the selectmen have more and more issues facing them, and they have to have more and more meetings, the executive secretary's time is really devoted to putting together the agenda, building the agenda, getting all the paperwork together, attending the meeting, doing the meeting notes, breaking down the meeting, sending out the correspondence, and then getting ready to set up another meeting. So some of the duties in her job description we also transferred into this job description, and that is the conduit notifications for the utility companies, the licensing for the taxis, the entertainment licenses, like I said earlier, the liquor licenses. She'll be handling, processing all these. She or he will be handling, processing all these. Again, the developing the database and the matrix for all of the contracts in our department, and also this position will, again, people I think don't understand that I only really get Michael, the assistant town administrator, 18 hours a week. He's really a shared position with the personnel board. So with us bringing up the health insurance to his position, we understood that he was going to need some support on open enrollment, on sending out notices. So this position will also be a support for the assistant town administrator with respect to health benefits.
Great.
So those are some of the duties.
I've got Steve and Darnell and me. There you go, Steve.
Thank you. So there are a lot of moving pieces here, so
Yes.
when they all settle in, is this an expanded budget overall, or is it a condensed one? Are we saving money, or is this costing us more money?
Actually, in my department, we're saving money. I think in the treasurer's office department, for the immediate future, you'll be saving money because the person that retired was at a higher step. The person that took that position comes in at a lower step, so you'll have some savings there. The executive secretary in my department is retiring in June. Her position is a level 6 position, but it's been funded at a level 7 because it used to be handled that when she did the selectmen's meetings at night, that was paid. She was paid for those hours. A few years ago, we renegotiated that, and her 37.5 hour a week includes night meetings. But in order to not reduce her compensation, what we did was we took what she was making at that time for her 37.5 hour a week salary, plus what she was making for the nightly meetings, and we did an average, and we slotted her into a level 7 position. So again, for her not to lose compensation. But with the understanding that once that woman retired, that position would revert back to a level 6 position.
So can you quantify that for us? And since we're in a 2-year budgeting sort of scenario here, can you tell me what that means in next year's budget at the same time if we're doing all these changes?
In fiscal 17's budget?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, because, you know, the newer positions will all jump up in cost versus what, especially since they're higher grade, they'll jump up more quickly.
Mhm. Sure.
Okay. Darnell?
She's still answering. Okay.
Okay.
My question is, we're talking about bringing people in now. The people that we have, I don't know if any of these people have been cited or we know who might be filling these positions, but are we looking at people coming in with the to help and assist in the different contracting, helping with the different positions? Are we gonna have people here and then try to train them up into the, I would say, the voids in their knowledge, and how we planning on getting them trained for where they have maybe some deficiencies at this point? Maybe they're strong in one area, because we're asking them to do a whole lot. I mean, I don't, we're asking these folks to come in and kind of be a jack of all trades and, catch a lot of drop. How are we getting them trained, and what do we have planned out to get them trained and ready for this position? Or do we know some folks out there that have all this training?
We have already had some movement. Most of these positions, with the exception of the positions in my office, are clerical union positions. So we had to work within the constraints of the collective bargaining agreement, which is the positions had to be posted 7 days internally. The financial analyst position has been filled internally, and I'll let Amy speak to that position in a moment. The person that was doing the level 3 work in the treasurer's office is the same person. She was just reclassified up to the level 4. So there's, and the person that transferred from the central business office down to the treasurer's office through the attrition was the person that was handling parking tickets, trash sticker sales, and recycling bin sales and composting bin sales. So she will be down in that office, and now there'll be a lot of cross-training going on in that office, because she'll be in that office in order to not only do the work, but then train the others that do the work. In my office, the positions have not been filled yet, but they have been advertised. We're currently calling the resumes now, and we're starting the interview process for my 2 positions. I'm happy to say that the person in my office that is retiring is going to be here through the rest of this fiscal year. So my hope is to get these 2 new positions filled by the middle of March, and have the expertise of the current employee that does a lot of these the duties of the executive secretary position now, here to help to train and mentor the employees. With respect to the other position, the contract licensing position, some of the duties, as I said earlier, that I took from the executive secretary position and moved into that position. Again, that executive secretary that's currently in my office can train her on those things, and the other pieces I will work to train that person on. But I hope, to answer your question, I hope to have someone that's, that is skilled, that has a lot of knowledge of 30B, that is great computer skills, knowledge of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, liquor licenses, so.
Yeah, and like I said, sometimes they're not there, but we also, if they don't have it, we also want to work a plan on getting them trained and budget that training, because your time is very valuable to this town, and sometimes it's better to get them outsourced the training, to go out and get it done. It also makes a lot of, I would say, good networking ties when you go out and get trained, because then you can always call somebody up if you have questions. So it increased the span and scope of our reach for the town. So training's not bad. And having that, but I say also we want to do is make sure we budget that somewhere to say, okay, we're bringing these new people and we're going to budget X amount of training to get them up and going in the first place, because I think we kind of fall back on that in a lot of our hiring and stuff when we look at it. It's not bad to send somebody out to get trained.
No, absolutely, absolutely not bad. We are very fortunate here, though, that when people do move within the union from position to position, that they take the time to go back to that former position and help to train that person that's slid in from another department. So people really work well together in the town hall and help one another. But you're absolutely correct. If we're bringing in new people from the outside, we do have to get those people up and trained. But as I said earlier, the executive secretary in my office is, she will be sorely missed when she leaves, because she has a wealth of knowledge, and she will be a great mentor to the two people that come into my office.
Well, I know there are training budget line items in many of the different budgets, so we can look at those when we get there.
Yes.
Do you have money in this current fiscal year's budget for an overlap of personnel for training purposes?
In the selectman's office, I do.
You do? Okay.
Because the assistant town planner position wasn't filled right on July 1st, so I have some money left there to keep, like I said, to keep Paula Rizzi here through the end of the fiscal year. Plus, the person that will take her position is coming in at a lower step for fiscal year 15.
But there's still the overlap, but it's basically Tricia's position that is supplying,
In
that hasn't
addition.
been filled, that is supplying you with the wherewithal for an overlap, I think.
It's all of those.
All of those,
It's the
okay.
senior admin clerk position, it's the assistant town planner position that wasn't filled as of July 1st, and it will be the change when
Oh, right.
the level 6 comes in. So it's,
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the payroll functions in general are in the treasurer's office.
the payroll function is, you're correct, is in the treasurer's office with oversight in the central business office by the assistant town accountant.
So now, the rest of those payroll functions, like the workers' comp and unemployment, things that are related to payroll
Payroll.
records, are going down to the treasurer's office, which
That's
makes a
correct.
lot of sense.
That's correct.
Um,
Because that's where the information is.
Right.
So when we were doing that work, we would just have to call down there, get the information, and then give it to the third party to do those audits. So it just made sense to move it down there.
Okay. So, does that give everybody a good idea on that? Okay, I wanna take 2 minutes and ask you about liquor licenses, since we've brought that subject up several times. And we do have a liquor license on our, is one of the new articles. You mentioned that each one has a different level of specificity to it.
Yes.
When is that determined? Not in the article I'm looking at for
No,
recommending?
the article you're looking at is for the home rule petition.
Right. So when?
It's when the applicant comes into the Board of Selectmen's meeting to apply for the actual liquor license. That's done at the local licensing level, which is your Board of Selectmen, and that is when those requirements are put into place.
Wouldn't town meeting want to know what those requirements might be in terms of whether or not they want to vote for it? I mean, is it, you know, whether it's beer and wine or a full, that kind of thing? If there are hours
It
attached?
has never happened in the past. It's always been the Board of Selectmen are your local licensing officials, so they're the ones that make the determination.
Okay. Well, then I guess they could speak to it at town meeting too, if it came up.
Absolutely. Or they could also come to the Selectmen's meeting when it was on the agenda.
Great. Okay, let's move on to the central business office. Thank you.
Okay.
And that's, and so we'll hear from Amy Dexter, our town accountant. And I'll also put it up so that there's,
Okay.
people have any questions.
What do you want me to just start by giving a brief overview, or?
Well, I think
Do
you
you want me
can
to
tell
give
us a
it?
little bit about the changes in your office and the changes in your responsibilities, and
Sorry.
maybe how this new financial analyst will help you out.
Okay.
And, you know, yeah, I understand that, I don't know if everybody else read the Department of Revenue's recommendations for the financial structure of, well, for the personnel structure of our financial management team for the town, but they did recommend that, that we beef it up, and this is an effort to do that, and we'll free Amy up to do more things other than day-to-day reconciliations. So,
Right. So let me explain how my department's organized as it currently is now after the reorganization. So there's myself, that's the town accountant. I'm responsible for all of the financial reporting of the town, which is a $100 million budget, which you all know. I do all the financial reporting to the Department of Revenue. I work with the outside auditors. I reconcile all of the balance sheet accounts, several of the revenue expenditure accounts, plus, that's general fund, plus all of the other special revenue funds, capital project funds, trust funds, all of those things falls under my responsibility. My assistant town accountant is responsible for doing vendor warrants, meaning the payments to vendors. She's auditing the bills when they come in from the departments. She's checking if they're contractual, that they're in agreement with the contract, that we have the proper Form 1099s for tax purposes. She's setting up new vendors. She's reviewing everything to make sure that something hasn't been signed off by a department head that the town cannot legally pay, or we don't have the proper paperwork for, the proper backup. She's doing all of that so that when it comes to me and I'm reviewing it and I'm signing it off, she can answer all the questions I might have, and I have a strong comfort level that, you know, what's there has been looked at twice. It's been looked at her thoroughly, and then it comes to me and I look at it again. It's very important that checks and balances happen. She also does the same thing for payroll. So every department has, and most departments have, an admin assistant or an admin clerk that do that department's payroll. Some departments that might be only a couple people on what we call their pink sheets, which says Amy Dexter worked 37.5 hours at, you know, so much a week. End of story. She took, you know, 8 hours vacation day, 8 hours of vacation and whatnot. And they actually enter that into the system, and then they have to send the actual hard copy paperwork up to the town accountant's office, and the assistant town accountant thoroughly audits that. She goes through to make sure that if somebody was out sick the day before a holiday, that they're not getting paid for the holiday, or whatever per the collective bargaining agreements, the rules, or however you want to state it, are. She makes sure that if people are getting a stipend, that it's within the contract, and things like that. She maintains all the contracts in the system so that every year when the raises go through, she puts those in. And then it goes down to the treasurer's office, who actually processes the checks and takes it from there, does all the withholdings, sets up new employees. That check and balance is extremely important, that she's looking at that. That takes up most of her week, payroll and vendors. She does, she does work on special projects for me. She's often answering department questions. Oh, they looked at their expenses, something's coded wrong. She's making adjustments, things like that. But her week is pretty much very full. Plus, she assists at the counter when people come in, if there's a line or there's somebody at lunch or whatnot. So she really didn't have any availability to take on some of my duties. So I'm doing all the day-to-day journal entries, account reconciliations, right through to all the financial reporting, working with department heads on their budgets, forecasting. I've been here for 4.5 years, and over that time, my role has expanded greatly with, yes, a lot of it based upon the Department of Revenue recommendations, but also, as a new Board of Selectmen members come in, they have different ideas of what kind of reports they might see, how often, they might want to see them, that kind of thing. So I've been tasked to do more and more financial analysis, more forecasting, more special projects that I found that I was getting very behind on my day-to-day stuff. Now, in an accounting world, the recommendation and how I would want it to work is you would reconcile all the balance sheet accounts every month. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing it on a timely basis, which is not a good system of check and balances. It was starting to get weakened because of me being pulled off on, I'm on several committees that take, a lot of meetings and stuff. So anyways, I found this need where I didn't have anybody to offload that work to. I had 2 senior admin clerks that were mainly doing water and sewer, posting payments, selling trash stickers, selling recycle bins, a lot of that type of work. So when one of them left to go to work for the planning board, we didn't fill that with this reorganization and plan. And so we eliminated that position, and that's why there was a need to focus and shift some of the duties down to the treasurer's office, recognizing that I'm going from 2 people handling the counter and water and sewer to 1. So the financial analyst has been in place for 3 or 4 weeks now, I think, and she was an internal candidate. She's been doing a great job, and she's really just taking on all that stuff, which is, we're already up to date through December, so we're in really good shape with the stuff I want to see done every week. I need to get my office to where we're looking at things not reactively. Like I'm looking at things 2 months after the fact and saying, what happened? I need to get to a point where I'm not doing the day-to-day stuff so that I can do financial analysis, that I can say, hey, something looks up with sticker sales. How come they're down? And that I can proactively ask those kind of questions to the department heads so that we're looking at things and we're making good decisions and we're thinking things through instead of always being on the back end saying, what happened? And that's really my vision for where my office needs to go. And it's only going to get busier and busier as the budget expands. I mean, $100 million, one person doing the financial reporting, it's a lot of work. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I was honest and went to Anne Marie and said, I need help. The ship is starting to tip. And we started to put this reorg plan into place. So that's kind of where it is. I think it's where the office needs to be. I want to be clear that it addresses several of the Department of Revenue recommendations, but I think we all are aware that there probably, more than likely, will still be a future need for a CFO, ATA of finance type position. So we had to also recognize that there was an immediate need that wasn't going to get any better, and that type of position is probably a little ways down the road. So I just want to make that clear, that in no way were we saying we didn't need that position.
This is just the first step in
Yeah.
a much larger picture that we hope to, when I look to do reorganization changes in departments, I always try to do them through attrition or through vacancies, so I'm never displacing anybody. So this reorg is really the first step in what we hope to be a much larger plan as we move forward.
So, anyways, that's kind of where I was coming from with it. I think we're in really, starting just 3 to 4 weeks after she started. She's doing a great job. She's really getting, picking things up and just able to work very independently. I spend an hour or two with her every day, and she just kind of rolls with it. So I think she's going to be a really, valuable part of my team. And then I do have a principal bookkeeper that she does a lot of account reconciliations for water and sewer funds and capital projects, the bonding related to water and sewer and DPW projects, as well as Chapter 90. She keeps track of all of those expenditures, and she's really a key person to the DPW director to help him manage his budget, which is really large. So she reports to me, but she does a lot for me as well as a lot for Joe Lynn. She's kind of a shared resource. She helps Anne Marie out too. So they're all very key people, doing a little bit, different. I think we have full complement now, and by the end of the year, we'll be in really good shape to start fiscal 16 with really being on schedule, completing these so that I can get to the Board of Selectmen and present a flash report on a timely basis and not always be behind the 8 ball. So when I did the level service budget for 16, it's about a $1,400 increase over the level dollar line 26 budget. Basically, I had step increases of about $8,700 for fiscal 16. We transferred $54,000 in salary and wage to DPW, and then we transferred $13,500 to the treasurer's office for the parking ticket processing company. And then I used some of the excess funds that I've turned back historically over the last couple of years to fill the gap in the salary between the level 6 and the level 4.
Okay, so I put up your proof for level service
Yep.
on the screen. And just so we understand what's going on here, this contractual service here for $19,000 is for the payment of the parking ticket processing company or collection company. And depending on the volume of parking tickets, the payments could be as high as $19,000 or in fiscal year 14 as low as $11,784 or whatever it was. But it varies. So this contractual service is being moved from this central business office to the treasurer's office because they're going to collect the parking tickets now. And that'll be easier for people coming in, especially if they're paying with cash. The amount that is being added to the treasurer's budget is $13,500, and the amount that's being credited to the CPO is essentially the $19,000. But well,
The difference between.
the difference. So you're keeping $5,500.
Right.
Basically. So it's, you could give all $19,000 to the treasurer, but, this is one of those things, when you focus on a contract, you realize, oh, we've been overestimating this contract. Do we want to continue overestimating it? No. And where, it's not really, to me, the $5,500 is not the issue. The issue is can you hire that financial analyst and pay them and put them on. The 5,500 difference helps to sort of achieve level dollars, but anyway, that's the explanation of this chart. So for instance, when you also go to look at Schedule A, you'll see the contract line, 19,000, it was 11,709 was the actual. And that did create most of the turnback that we got from the CBO last year. Anyway, did you have a question, Darnell?
Yes, treasurer collector's budget. Where is that reflected, the 13,000? I understand. Is that, look back on that budget?
If we go back on that budget,
Yeah, look at, I see that reflected. It's not under his contract line, it's not under, on the check, where that reflect?
It's under contractual, 13.5.
Or am I looking at the?
It's included in the 127.
It's right here,
okay,
on schedule. On schedule E, it's down there.
let's see now.
Not on the schedule A, that's what I was saying, look at the schedule A.
I think it's in the
It's the whole-
126,000. It's part of the 126,000. It should be anyways. No, I was looking at the wrong one. No, I was looking at the wrong budget. When I-
gotta
No, it's part of the 83,370. If you look at Schedule E,
Okay.
I don't have that budget.
85,370.
There it is. Yeah, this was added, this reorganization happened in December. And the first budget we did get from the treasurer did not have this piece in it. So he gave us a revised budget, Darnell. Anyway, this was the revision, this 13,500 here. And also, I think his revision included that step level increase, okay? Anyway, so this should have been listed further down in Schedule E under contractual services, okay?
Yeah,
And then it
so-
would
so
have
the contract-
populated
Yeah.
Schedule A
Yeah,
properly.
contract, but yeah, okay, I see it now.
So that's why it didn't hit that. So, good catch.
Ted, I also have in my notes that we discovered an error on the professional services line between level service and level line. The 8,000 and the 11,000 were maybe transposed. That was the guess as to what the error was. Did that get resolved? I think it's still up there.
This one here.
Yeah, I wrote on here
Okay.
that the numbers were supposed to be reversed.
That has not been resolved,
Okay.
and thank you for reminding me.
Sure.
And I will make another note of it. Thanks. Okay, so are we finished with the treasurers for the
Yeah,
moment,
yeah.
since the treasurer's not here? Hi.
No,
Phil?
I was just kicking back, that's all.
Amy, back to traffic tickets.
Mhm.
Where does the revenue from traffic tickets go?
Where does it go?
Does it go through a department to the general?
Depends who collects it. Hold on. You were asking me what, it goes to the general fund, is that what you're asking
Yeah,
me?
it goes to the
Or
general
you're
fund.
asking me what classification within my local receipts?
No, I'm not getting that refined, but I'm wondering, what's the ratio of what we're paying for this outside service to do the tickets and what we collect each year? We're paying $7,000 or $11,000 for processing of these tickets, what are we collecting?
Hold on a second.
And I guess my point is there a way to structure this within a department so that you can do a revolving fund type thing that might help pay for that outside service to process them rather than have it in your budget?
I don't know about the revolving fund, but I want to say, I'm trying to, I don't have, I didn't print out the descriptions, which was foolish, but I want to say it's somewhere around 60, 70,000. I mean, it more than pays for itself.
60 or 70?
Yeah, I can get the exact number for
Okay.
you, but it's significantly more than the fees, and we get a lot for that, 13.5. We get, when they can't collect it, they put a notice on the person's registration and license so that when they're up for renewal, they cannot renew until they come to town hall and pay. So the collection rate is extremely high because of that, and they do all the, they do all the collection, not all the collection, because some people still like to come in
Yeah.
and do it, or they've lost their ticket and we have to look it up, but,
Could you give us like a 5-year look at the revenue from traffic tickets so we could see what kind of enforcement we're getting from that?
And then we can bring it up on the 19th.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Amy, in terms of local revenue, this isn't exactly, this is straying a bit off the topic of your budget, but one of the things that I discovered this year when we revamped our budget templates, and I want to thank you, it was a magnificent job of changing the templates around so that we could really see the history of each department's expenses. Anyway, the one thing we're not getting this year is the revenue that different departments might bring in. And I've been thinking about that. I mean, in the past, many of the departments had no clue about the revenue they might be bringing in or couldn't estimate it properly. And it fell to you anyway, and then we would look at it. But we look at we look at aggregations of things like fees. And fees come from a number of different operating departments. And I'm just, I just wanted to bring this up, but at some point, maybe we could have a breakdown of what is the police department bringing in? What is the inspectional services bringing in? What is the planning department bringing in? What, as revenue lines that match up to the aggregation of fees, permits, licenses that come from a variety of departments, because it's hard to, it's just hard to reconcile those two different descriptions,
So what I brought with me tonight, I didn't print the column that has the line item description, which ties to this revenue analysis that I shared with you earlier in the budget process. This, if I reprint this, resort it, and subtotal it by department, that will give you it. And it will show you what line items. It will show you the parking tickets. It will show you the trash stickers sold by the library versus the trash stickers sold upstairs. It will tell you how much the town clerk took in for birth certificates. I mean, they're vital statistics. It will get you to that level. And I did it for
That's
the last,
huge.
back to 2007. So I have, 8 years of history here, and I have fiscal year 15, 6 months to date. I worked on this today, and I rushed when I printed it. The way I have it sorted now, it ties to this revenue analysis that I gave you. So I'll save it and resort it a different way so that you have it both ways, so that
that'd be
you
great.
can see what's in these line items.
I can circulate it.
Okay, I'll
And-
work on
and
that
if you
tomorrow.
can- That'd be great, because we have some budgets coming up
Okay.
for whom that would be really instructive.
And a couple of those people have come to me and asked me for the information in preparation of the budget.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, Steve?
I have a few questions, actually. Mrs. Fagan, you had earlier said that this reorganization was the first step in a bigger plan. And I'm wondering what that bigger plan's gonna be necessarily, and what's gonna cost, and if this initial step puts us irreversibly on the pathway to that.
It's a plan that I'm not ready to share yet, because I haven't even shared it with my Board of Selectmen. But again, as I spoke earlier, it's the beginning stages of what I'd like to see change within Town Hall. What I mean by that is, I would like to see one section of Town Hall become the true financial area for Town Hall, and I would like to have, under that umbrella, I would like to have the town accountant, the treasurer's office, the assessor's office, all in the same location, maybe like the back section of the second floor of Town Hall, so that they can share resources, share staff, whereby trying to, again, consolidate and restructure departments. But again, as I had said earlier, those are things I like to do when through attrition and through vacancies. So there are changes that I'd like to make. I hope to get them done within my tenure here, but I'm not ready to roll out the full plan just yet.
Okay.
But as Amy had,
It can be good, and change can be just for change's sake, so with respect to what we're doing, the things I would be interested in knowing is what efficiencies do we get from that, or what coverages do we get that we don't have?
what I try to do is I always try to change, when I'm doing a reorganization plan, I always try to make it so that I streamline efficiencies and I consolidate duties and employees to lower the costs.
And then the other question is kind of changing subjects a little bit, but it's still on the professional services contracts that the town has. It troubles me that we go out to bid for those as infrequently as we do. You know, I'm not disparaging any of the quality of the work, but it just strikes me as not being good business practice to go out and procure those periodically, to see that you're getting the best service that you can, the best price that you can, and that the consultants are staying on their toes and giving you their best efforts. And this is something, you know, that I brought up last year, and you know, I haven't seen any evidence that any of these have been, you know, procured again, or procured in this year. And it's, you know, it's legal, it's auditing, and there's some other functions too. It's, again, no disparagement on the people that we get the services from. They may end up getting it, but they may have to sharpen their pencil to keep the contract, and they at least know that they don't own that contract forever and can give you, you know, less than top-notch service.
Duly noted.
Well, we will see a number of budgets tonight where that idea applies, Steve, so. But we have the blanket statement for it now. So, anybody else on the central budget office before we move on? Alphabetically. General insurance. Okay, this is Anne Marie's charge. It is $1 million budget. It is
Contractual budget, so that's why there's only one line filled in on it.
right, and this is a PDF, so it's not showing up very well here. Okay, so the main feature of this budget is that its purchasing power has traditionally been augmented by an encumbrance from the previous year. And that purchasing power is generally necessary. It's our self-insurance for a number of things that could happen, for which we're not specifically insured. And I think the easiest way to understand that is to look at some of the narrative here and realize, just going backwards, wait a minute, must be the next page up.
There's another page
Triggers.
after that, too.
That's what I thought too. Why is it not?
It's a little, yeah, section.
Okay. Well, here we are, police and fire coverage. Look at bottom line, there's a $45,000 aggregate deductible. School board liability, $15,000 per deductible per occurrence. Law enforcement liability, $15,000 deductible. Public officials and employee liability, each occurrence $25,000 deductible. If, I don't know when the last time we had one of those deductibles ever occurred, but if you had a rash of them, you'd go through that 250,000 pretty quickly. So I think essentially that's my understanding of the reason for that large encumbrance from year to year.
And if I could just add to that, Ted, it's
Sure.
also for lawsuits that are not covered by the town's insurance company.
Okay, which might be another piece of the narrative here. So what lawsuits would those be that we haven't looked at already?
Well, some of them are confidential in nature, so I couldn't really divulge them at this time. They're still ongoing,
Ah,
Ted.
so the actual settlement, not a deductible.
Not a deductible, the actual settlement.
Well, I guess we gotta hope for the best.
That's right.
So, anyways, that's what you see on Schedule C, encumbered from the prior year. 50. Steve?
As a 5-year average, is that 250 enough to cover what we've been paying out over the
Yes.
last 5 years?
Yes.
Is it too much?
No,
So
especially with a couple of.
250 is where it's been?
Yeah, there's a couple of outstanding suits right now that I could potentially need to seek more money for if they don't settle in the town's favor.
So we pretty much understand the
It's just-
probable necessity of carrying something like that for contingencies, but I guess I'm looking at why, tell me about why the basic policies should be going up $59,000. I mean, I know it's a small thing, and,
Well, let me give you a brief overview. We are in a consortium with Mass Interlocal Insurance Association. We've been with them since 1994. We did go out to bid in 2006. Maya did come in well below the other bidders that we did receive. Maya has they service about 400 communities and entities within the state of Massachusetts, so they're a large pool. The way that the budget is predicated is they look at the past 3-year history, and then they give you what your next year's projection will be. Sometimes, if we have a good year, we'll get a dividend payment or a participation credit. When those do come in, they get turned over and they're sent to the general fund. But the way this budget is predicated is on your last 3 years' history with respect to general liability, workers' compensation. And this budget, general insurance budget, is a total town budget. And what I mean by that, it's not only just a town side, it also incorporates all the schools' insurance requirements as well.
so how are we doing on those rebate programs for workers' comp over the last 3 years? Pretty well, right?
The last 3 years, we did well. We have what's called a loss control credit program that I think I talk about every year when I come, how proud I am of it, because it's a real team effort by all department heads to work on the program. And what it is that you want to try to put policies and procedures in place that limit the amount of risk that you have in the town, and you have to hit certain benchmarks. And it's with calling in your workers' comp claims in a timely fashion, to having policies and procedures in place with respect to safe dig, back prevention, back injury prevention, water and sewer management, all kinds of safety policies and procedures. I don't have the amount of the last 3 years of what we've gotten back with that loss control credit program, but it has been substantial. And it's always a year behind. So in other words, I will be getting fiscal year 14's credit in fiscal year 15.
Any other questions on general insurance? Okay. So the actual $59,000 increase, Anne Marie, that actual increase, that's the projection by MIA.
That's correct, at this period in time, yes.
Okay, so that's not an estimate, that's their projection.
That's their projection.
Okay.
As we get closer to the warrant, the printing of the warrant, I always go back and ask them to take one more look at their numbers and see if there's any way they can reduce that increase. So I do that usually around March. And sometimes I'm able
I'll
to
be
come back
interested.
with some good news and lower the budget by a few dollars, and some years I'm not able to do it.
Okay, great. We'll hope to hear from you on that score. The next budget, I'm not sure, is group insurance. Historically, who's
This budget's a
Charge.
joint,
That's
it's a
what I
joint
thought.
budget between Amy and myself, and now Michael will be brought into it because he's going to be handling health insurance.
Okay, this
So this-
budget, this is 10% of the town's budget.
Yes, and again, this is a total town budget. Again, it's health insurance for all employees in the town. The projected increase is about a 4%. However, the overall total increase is higher than that because we had to increase the number of employees. If you remember last year, we came with some good news. Amy and I worked at reformatting this budget and actually taking a real apples-to-apples comparison from year to year.
We remember it pretty well.
Yes.
It saved
Yes.
the town $1,100,000
Well, we were-
compared to projection.
We weren't able to come back
Bailed us
this
out.
year and do that, unfortunately, because we
But
we
you
did
can't
have
do it
some.
twice.
No, we did have some increases in the number of employees. So that increase resulted in about 319,000.
18,301.
Oh, 318. And then the projected increase for the health insurance for fiscal year 15 is about a 4%. Again, this is another budget that we come back to you after a period, usually about halfway through the year. When this budget is created, it's done in October, November, and we don't really have enough claim history for the year to really get a good projection. So we sit down with our consultant. We're scheduled to sit down with our consultant. I believe it's February 18th. And we're going to go over the claims, because we'll now have a good 6 months' worth of claims for this fiscal year. And hopefully, we can come back and with some good news and reduce the budget.
Okay, that'd be great. It would be very nice. Now, I understand, well, one question I have is, the consultant you have for the health insurance, this would be addressing Steve's concern. How long have we had that consultant? This is Cook and Company?
Cooking Company, we've had that consultant,
I guess a long time.
yeah, it's probably since 2004, maybe, 2005.
Mhm. And are they, do they have any competition?
So I'll go.
Yeah, they do. There's other insurance companies out there
Great. So we can look forward to maybe
bidding.
a bid
Mhm.
process, especially when you get someone on your team that is responsible for that.
Mhm.
Hey, Michael?
Thanks. Does the town offer benefits for spouses or only for employees of the town?
No, they offer family plans.
Okay. Have you looked at requiring, I'm not talking about dependents, but some companies have moved to a plan that says if your spouse is employed somewhere that offers health insurance, you are not eligible to enroll your spouse in health insurance through the town, so, for example.
Oh, no.
That's something that's happening to a lot of companies right now. It happened to my company last year. This is our second year doing it. And we received a presentation that said that that's pretty much a trend. Where if your spouse is eligible for health insurance at any job, then they need to get health insurance at that company or somewhere else. But our employer is not going to offer you a family plan under that scenario. But if you have, dependents, of course you can cut. It's
Yes.
basically employee plus dependent plus spouse if your spouse does not have a job that offers health insurance.
That's
And that
interesting.
apparently created a significant amount of savings for my company last year.
I know there is a program out there that if your spouse has health insurance and you
Get a rebate.
yes, you can get a rebate if you go on your spouse's health insurance.
Right.
But I hadn't heard of this one.
Mhm.
We'll look into that.
I don't know, sounds like a race to the bottom to me.
It
you
kind
know,
of
which
is,
kind of what-
but everybody is apparently doing it, so.
Everybody is racing to the bottom.
Everybody's looking for ways to save on health insurance.
Well, it's a big number. I think one of the things that is helpful to understand about this is this last bit that you showed us on the 318,000 portion, which is attributable to the increase in number of employees enrolled in the plan. And this, the change in enrollment, I understand, can happen for any number of reasons, but basically, nobody gets off the plan, pretty much, right, if you're on, because this is also the plan that covers retirees, right?
Unless you're a teacher, a teacher goes into the state retirement system. But yes, all other employees.
Oh, okay, so, so it's stunning to have 29 new ads if employment is generally level. So I think we need to, when we talk to the schools, Paul, we needed to ask them about
What-
these school numbers on this list.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
Just keep in mind, this doesn't mean they're new, it's turnover. And think about the nature of the school system and the teachers and instructional aides. Sometimes there's a lot of turnover. And you get one teacher that's retiring that wasn't on the health insurance, and you're hiring a new young teacher or somebody that is going to come on. So it's not necessarily that, I don't know the specifics of it, but a lot of it's turnover through attrition, and they have had some retirements as well as the town. So you could have somebody that wasn't on it, and then you replace them when they leave, and that person elects coverage. Or it could go the other way, but unfortunately this year it didn't work in our favor. It could go the other way where
Right.
And it could be a life
change in
event too.
families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Change in family
Yeah.
If your
status.
spouse changed their job, you
If
move
you're
to
single
this.
and then you get married or have
Right.
children, it
You have
could
a,
change the
you have a
numbers.
child,
Yeah.
you go from individual plan to family plan. So it's not, you can't look at it as
Employment.
they added that many people. A lot of it's through just
Through attrition.
natural turnover and.
Like the fire is, there were 2 retirements in the fire. The police, those are replacement positions, and the DPW are replacement positions. So it's not additional staff
Right,
numbers to
but
their department.
the schools are not just replacement positions, because retired school teachers drop out of this system. So it's a net increase of 11 teachers and 8 aides. whereas the DPW and the police and fire are not net increases,
Well,
they're just
worse
gross
because
increases.
if they retire, they're still on, if they retire,
Right.
they're a town employee, you're still under the retirement, and then you get replaced, so you have,
Right,
You're
that's
still on
why,
a
that's why the
plus
fire
number.
is a straight add of 2
right,
for people who have retired
Right.
in that year. Whereas you could have had 10 teachers retire, and we're showing an 11 increase, which means maybe there were 21 new teachers jumped on, okay? So it would be nice to know how many, it'd be nice to know what that churn is, and, you know, what our policies are doing that creates that churn, or if that's typical. I don't know. Anyway, something to look into is, I mean, do you have those numbers?
What we do is we just call to get the enrollment numbers. So we wouldn't be able to give you the scenarios of if they're replacement, if they're new positions, or that would have to come from the schools.
Okay. All right. Phil, and then Chuck?
Lee Michael's idea has worked pretty well in the private sector, but I assume that to do it here, we'd require union negotiation to make the plan change, which may or may not happen. One of the things that towns were looking at 8 or 10 years ago, and I stopped following it at the time, was they were paying stipends to new employees to encourage them to select their spouse's coverage rather than the community's coverage. Have you looked at that at all to see whether that's working, whether towns are doing it?
That was the program I was
Because you
speaking
can
of
give someone
earlier,
a pretty
but I
good
don't.
stipend in lieu of a $10,000 family coverage and a health plan,
Mm-hmm.
and save yourself quite a bit of money if you're in doing that.
Yeah, it's
That's an
something to-
HR kind of thing that you might want to
Yes,
look into.
it is something worth exploring, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely correct. To do something like what Lee Michael is talking about, it would require negotiations with all unions.
Chuck?
Speaking of negotiations, have you, I think you have looked at, but I just figured I'd ask anyway, have you considered moving the healthcare to the state's GIC? And could that be a source of savings?
We have, we looked at that a couple of years ago when we renegotiated to the 80-20 split, premium split. We used to be 85-15. And what we did is, instead of going into the GIC, we changed the premium split. And it really was pretty much the same type of a savings as we would have reached by going into the GIC.
That change of split led to probably 2 years where we didn't have to think about an override because of the savings. But now that's definitely under the bridge. So, yeah, sorry, Steve.
The follow-up question, is that still holding that the savings would be the same, or is it?
We haven't done that analysis.
I think that was kind of what you were getting.
Yeah,
Well,
we haven't done that
the GIC
analysis
is gonna,
this year.
they're gonna change their percentage, so I'm sure that's, I think it would be, I'm not an expert on negotiate, I think it would be easier to just have the state run it and not have to deal with it. Because they sometimes raise the percentage and you just have to deal with it if you're an employee. And I'm sure that's what's gonna happen at the state level this year. You might have guessed that I am in the GIC, so
I wouldn't be surprised at some point if the town was to take that tract, but at this point in time, and due to the collective bargaining, which is confidential, at this time, that's not something that we would be looking into.
I'd encourage to follow the percentage split between the state and the town.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I presume that one of the conditions of winning a better split was that we couldn't hold GIC over their heads anymore. So I don't know where you go from there. But yeah, if that's the trend, you know, again, it's too bad that the private sector's bad examples in some departments are what the public sector, you know, ends up being pressured into chasing. But anybody else on group insurance? No. Okay, now we're looking at a bill, law. And again, you might as well tell us how long we've had the
And
law
Steve's,
firm.
I was gonna say, and Steve's comment is duly noted here as well, and I will bring it back to the selectmen.
Okay. So the retainer never comes back, Darnell.
Don't you
No,
dare.
that's it.
Working on things.
But the professional and special services, you know,
It fluctuates.
if we don't spend them, then they do come back. Disbursements and claims, sure thing. Just to start with the smallest item there, I'm just kind of stunned that there were no claims at all, or at least there were no claims paid in fiscal year 14. So, no potholes, no nothing. That's great. We must be doing something right, huh?
Well, we get right to them now that we have the pothole complaint line. You know, if someone hits, if Michael hits a pothole, and the town had no prior knowledge of it, then the town's not responsible to pay for that claim. If Michael hits the pothole, the town's notified that Michael hit the pothole, they don't do anything about it. Now I come along and I hit the pothole, and I break my tie rod, the town's responsible to pay my claim, because they had knowledge that there was a pothole on that street. So I think, again, this is, you know, kudos to your DPW department, because they're getting right on those pothole claims as they are notified of them.
Oh, speaking of DPW, I'm pretty impressed driving around town.
Yeah,
I think they've
those
done
men
well,
and
we
women
ought to
deserve a
thank them.
lot of credit. I mean, the amount of snow that we've had is historic, and they have been working around the clock, and they deserve a lot of praise.
Yeah, we hope Joe will show up for his appointment with us.
Maybe a little sleepy, but hopefully he'll be here.
Anyway, no, I was just surprised there was, you know, a big zero there. I don't know, I mean, this is one of those budgets you can't really tell us much about.
No, you can't. I can give you where I am at through November for the professional services, which is your law, your special and your labor, and through November of 2014, it's $87,000 that's been expended.
Okay, so that's 5/12, that's roughly in keeping
Yeah, it's
with
pretty.
the budget. Usually, often you have a balloon towards the end in May and June. I don't know if that's the law firms realize that they're at the end of our fiscal year, or if they, you know, and they need to catch their billing up. But it would probably be more related to cases in the wind that they're working on, and I don't know, and you can't tell us about them. So,
That's right.
so I guess, I guess because we'll have to think about the reserve fund in terms of things like snow and ice, are you confident that, or reasonably confident that we won't need a reserve fund transfer for law this year?
I think we have a lot of projects on our plate that involve town council's expertise, so I really can't answer that right now, Ted,
Okay, because
unfortunately.
before budget time, we could use a clue there, because if we need to set aside, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 for additional law bills for this year,
Mhm.
we gotta get it from somewhere, so if you can keep that in
I'll
mind.
keep monitoring it, and I will keep you abreast of where the bills are going.
Great. Any other observations on Phil?
Emery, at one time, expenditures for law were spread across 3 different town budgets.
Mhm.
Have we now consolidated everything on this one?
That's correct,
Right.
yes.
Wow. Mike?
I just have a question in general. How would you evaluate town council? What criteria would you use to see if you're doing it, you're getting a good bang for your buck?
That's a good question.
Thank you. I'm sitting there waiting to ask a good question.
That's a really good question.
Your work is done here.
My work is
How
done.
would I evaluate
I gotta
them?
wait
I
to
would
listen to the answer.
I have a chair for you here.
I would evaluate the success of his cases. I would evaluate his advice to the Board of Selectmen when they're deliberating on how to make a decision with respect to a certain project. His timeliness of getting back to department heads who seek his expertise. It's,
A follow-up question would be, do we compare that to other towns? Like a batting average kind of,
I never have. No, I never have. But that's a good question. Can do that.
Okay.
Can look at some other towns, see what they're, who they're using for their law services, and get a feel for what they're paying a year for their law services, and compare.
Yeah, I'm not saying what number we should pay, really. I don't know. It could be we have to pay more because we want them to do more for us.
Mhm. I do think the town has been well-served for the number of years that I've worked here, which is approaching 20, by Town Council John Flynn. I think he's master in his field. I think the town has been well-served by his leadership with respect to law questions, negotiations, successful cases. Yeah, I think they've been well-served.
Okay, thanks.
Paul?
Just as a hypothetical, if you do start looking at, Steve says, you're looking at other bids for this kind of
Mhm.
thing. How long has the current firm been employed by the town? Is it,
John Flynn's been town council, I think, since 1989.
was someone else in his firm town council before him, or did his firm come on board to the town with John?
I think John was hired in 1989 as town council, and I think prior to him it was Robert O'Leary, and he was not with John Flynn's firm.
And the only reason I'm asking this question is I would assume there would be some value to the town from the institutional memory that any law firm would have. And I just want to know, is there a point in time, is there anybody you can talk to who remembers the last time a transition was made, and you can evaluate what kind of difficulties, if any, that might have caused to the town from the interruption of institutional memory going from one firm to another?
Mm-hmm.
That's Betty.
Yeah,
Good question.
that is a good question.
I know, I remember. No, I mean,
Oh,
I
so
think.
you have the knowledge.
I do. I think Mr. O'Leary was a sole practitioner. He was not in a law firm. And I think that John's law firm represents a lot of municipalities in Massachusetts. I mean, I work for the town of Dedham, and that law firm represents Dedham and represents the schools as well. And it's very well thought of, and I think they have a real niche in municipal law. Not saying that there aren't others, but I think that they have a very good reputation. You know, I know John's been with the town for a long time, and I think people in general, I think he does a good job.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry if I can just follow up, just to tweak sort of Steve's point. I think with certain things, you know, yeah, you bid out to a different a different contractor in the same field. I would just say off the top of my head, insurance, to me, insurance, you just get the best policy you can get under, and it doesn't really, to a certain extent, it's not gonna make that much of a difference who you go to, although, I don't really know the intricacies of how the town deals with its insurance, and whether questions like institutional memory and other things come into play. But I think with law firm, I think that's sort of a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I agree.
Michael?
I was gonna say something like that, but also ask what you thought a good rule of thumb was for reviewing a contract, because I don't think each one needs to be done every year. It seems like different contracts will have a different horizon by which you wanna send it out to bid again.
Yeah, I think 5 years is a plenty sufficient length of time, and, you know, I mean, I said it a couple times before, I mean no disparagement of who we have, but I also believe fully that there's a tendency, if you've got the contract locked up, or seemingly so, that you're not necessarily
Slide
giving
with
the
it, yeah.
town the best financial return that could be done. And, you know, the present town council is not gonna be there forever either. Maybe a senior partner bills at a higher level. We could have some younger, newer firm, much more hungry for the business and capable of doing the business, that comes in and knocks your socks off. So when they know that there's possible competition, you're gonna get the best value.
Yeah.
And you may still wind up saying, nope, you know, we've looked at all of the, you set up parameters, this is the services we want, who can give us those the best, and just say, okay, irrespective of the fact that we might save $30,000, these people are much more experienced and have a higher batting average on their cases, we'll stick with them, as opposed to just grabbing at the financial standings. But keeping the consultants on their toes is always a good idea.
I think we can all agree that constant reevaluation is probably a good thing.
And just
Any
to
of our
follow up on
endeavors.
that, we do go out, our stop loss insurance, we go out to bid every year, because we are self-insured, but we always go out to get the best bang for the buck on that. Our audit, that's a 3-year contract, I think this is our last year, so that we'll go out again on that.
We're getting there.
So we're getting there, yes. But I have to echo what Paul said very eloquently, that, you know, there's so much institutional knowledge, and I think one of the benefits of that is that there is turnover. You know, selectmen change, town administrators change, staff change, and to have a firm that has all that institutional knowledge can save you a lot of money as well, because they may have already done the work that someone asks to be done again.
We'll agree to disagree.
Okay.
Institutional knowledge is a little overrated sometimes.
Okay, well, let's find out about municipal audit, because that's next, alphabetically. And this is a comparatively much smaller budget. But nonetheless has some heft to it. They come out with an annual report, our auditors do, right?
Yes.
Could you make that available to the warrant committee?
It's on the website,
It's on the
town's
website?
website. The last several years are up there.
Okay, but this last one is up?
Mhm.
Okay, great, thank you. So, the main difference for fiscal year 16 is the inclusion of another $8,000 for the GASB 45 required audit of OPEB benefits or other post-employment benefits. And that's a 2-year, every other year requirement. And so I guess that's the main change here, is that right?
Yes,
Oh, this is,
this is mine.
that's yours?
The savings
Okay.
budget.
All right. Okay. And that's pretty much all there is to it. It's a bill. And, okay, here's the breakdown. The basic audit is 58,000 and the GASB audit is 8,000. Last year the GASB was 7,250, but who knows? Now, that's basically what the narrative tells us. So, hey, who is our audit firm?
Powers and Sullivan?
Powers and Sullivan. And you think you're putting it out to bid in the near future? Or
Well,
you
it's
just did?
fiscal 15 is the last year of a 3-year contract, so the audit of fiscal 15. The plan is to go out. I believe there's also an article in the warrant regarding the audit committee, which also addresses that they would, that article is kind of, I think, redefining the roles of the audit committee, and I believe there's something in there related to selecting auditors. I think that they would be tasked with that, with probably, hopefully, they would ask my opinion to assist with that, but, yeah. We've had Powers and Sullivan since I started in 2010. It did expire since I've been here, but it was, I believe it was, I've been here 4.5 years, so we're in the 3rd year now, so the feeling was that me being new, it wouldn't be a good time to change. So we extended the contract with the thought of going out to bid when it expired.
Probably was a sound decision. Anybody have any questions about the audit? I mean, I do know that there's, yeah, we haven't gotten there in terms of review, but we do have a new article on beefing up the audit committee and charging them, you know, with greater oversight than they had been before, and formalizing it in the bylaws of the town, which also hadn't been the situation beforehand. Is there anything you want to add, Bill, at this point?
No, I think the article language makes it quite clear that the committee will have a great deal of authority in going out and deciding whenever it wants to rebid the process. But I'm sure that they'll be smart enough to talk to Amy about it.
Be nice if they kept the cost down, too. So.
Yeah, although my recollection is when I looked at this budget years ago, is that there really is not a lot of increase in this budget every year for the fee that they charge.
There hasn't, and over the last 4 years, my staff and I have really taken on a lot more. They used to, I mean, when they come, we're ready, and we have schedules for them. There's, here you go, and our work is almost done once they arrive, and that makes their process more efficient. So I would like to think that one of the things I would press when we do go out to bid is, okay, start taking that into account. When the fees were set last time, you didn't have that history with, you know, with us doing as much as we are now, and hopefully in that bid process, I think some of it, not saying it would make it go down, but maybe not a significant increase, I would hope. But no guarantees, obviously, but we do a lot of the stuff up front. Makes it much more streamlined for their staff also, if there's very little adjustments, you know. We haven't had audit adjustments because the books are pretty clean when they get here.
Yeah, no, if they don't have to tear their hair out wondering how you got to a certain point, then they're happier and it's much smoother. Great. Personnel is next. And that's Michael's. Okay, so when I first came across this budget several years ago, I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And then I realized that essentially it's a budget for a half person. And then the question always was, really? I don't know what the heck the personnel board does, but really, you're putting half your time into this situation. And maybe that's true. Earlier Anne Marie mentioned that she only gets you for 18 hours. So I guess the other 18 hours, no, that doesn't add up quite right. But anyway, the other half of your job is with the personnel board. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's the big question that people have on the warrant committee when they look at this, especially newcomers. What is this department? What are we doing here? And why shouldn't it be rolled into some other budget? Or why, anyway. Take it away.
Sure. I think historically, and Anne-Marie can correct me, where this position was really a dual role, it was kept separate to break that out, the responsibilities. Certainly, I would say at least half my time is spent on personnel issues. So when I say personnel, a lot of that is directly with the personnel board. So that's meeting monthly, and setting their agendas, packets, running their meeting correspondence, but all other personnel issues as well. Dealing with employees, now taking on the health insurance piece as well. So as Anne-Marie mentioned, her goal, and I share that goal, is really to have my position become more of a true HR position. Previously, as my position morphs, HR was really just catch as catch can. It's just the way it was kind of formalized, for example, a new employee meets with me as the HR representative, previously would meet with the assistant treasurer for health insurance, the payroll person for their direct deposit and OBRA issues, would still continue to meet with the retirement board person. So it was really spread out, and so the idea to bring it under one umbrella as much as possible. So it really does encompass half, and it will continue to grow now that I've taken on the health insurance piece. Just for about a week and a half I've had that.
So I still don't understand, after all these years, why this just can't be part of the, why it just can't be part of the selectmen's budget, and you would be the assistant town administrator for human resources. And I mean, yes, the personnel board needs to be supported by you, but that's, I don't know that it would have to be financially determined that way, I mean, are any of these expenses actually for your office or for the personnel board?
Personnel board, yeah.
Okay.
So these would be personnel-specific memberships, Massachusetts Personnel Association, the postage and meeting expenses relative to personnel, professional services related to personnel as well. So this is all strictly personnel functions and costs.
And I mean, just,
The personnel board, if I can just elaborate
Sure.
on Michael's role, having done it for a little bit, the Personnel Board is a separate volunteer board, and they're charged under Chapter 13 with, they are the keepers of the classification plan and the salary structure. And no employee in the town of Milton, on the town side, not including the schools, the town side can start work or draw a paycheck without approval of the Personnel Board. Any person that's looking for reclassifications, they have to go through the Personnel Board. The first step in the budget process every year is the preliminary salary sheets go out to all department heads to be completed. And any department that is looking to increase hours of a position, create a new position, reorganize, they have to submit a preliminary salary sheet that's status quo and a preliminary salary sheet with those changes. Those changes have to then be approved by the Personnel Board. Michael has to keep updated policies and procedures. My hope, again, with this one-stop office for personnel is for Michael to be able to devote more time to running training programs for our department heads that will help them to deal with their employees and personnel issues, thereby hopefully preventing any grievances or any investigations. So his role for the Personnel Board is more than just attending a meeting a month. He has to do salary surveys. He has to he does organizational charts with comparisons to other towns. So there's a whole host of duties that the Personnel Board require Michael to do. They're looking now to update a town employee handbook. They're looking, because that's something that we have never been able to get to the point of being able to do. So I'm hoping now with the changes in the department that Michael will have time to do that. We are looking to have again, a one-stop shopping with a checklist for Michael to create so that a new employee doesn't have to go to a number of different departments. They come to the Personnel Department and they complete their forms there. They get their health insurance forms there. They schedule their pre-employment physicals if one is warranted. Michael does all the queries. So there's a lot more that goes into wearing his Personnel Board hat than just attending a meeting, setting up an agenda, and breaking down a meeting.
No, I understand that. I just don't, I guess I'm being thick. I just don't understand why he,
Well, because they're a separate board. They're not under the Board of Selectmen. The Personnel Board's a separate board. So it's the way it's been.
So-
He supplies support to the Personnel Board.
but is this really a workable arrangement? I mean, does the Personnel Board have total autonomy from the rest of the town? Even though you're working in two offices, you're working for the Selectmen and you're working for the Personnel Board.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to keep those
Two hats?
responsibilities separate?
Mhm.
Okay. I would find that difficult to do, but,
Well, I mean, I think it is
Yeah, it-
difficult, I mean, but, some of the duties are more clearly defined for Selectmen's Office or Personnel Board. There certainly is some overlap, but they certainly are separate and distinct, the majority of the responsibilities.
well, good luck with it. Any questions? No? Okay, so now we'll get to the budget I think you ought to be in, but that's the Selectmen's budget.
Yeah. I think in the narrative, I outlined the personnel changes with respect to the reorganization plan. showed you the status quo and what the reorg represents. There is one time in the salary and wage sheet, there is a one-time amount in there for a sick leave buyback for a person that is retiring this year.
Right, and that's part of, there are about four of those sick leave buybacks this year.
Yes.
I think there were 2 last year and 0 the 2 years before that. Anyway, I understand that for new hires, that's not a provision any longer.
That is correct.
Thank you. So, yeah, no, I think this is, part of the narrative shows that your budget is, as a consequence of the reorganization, we're saving about $3,500 in your budget. In actually the central business office, I think we might be spending about $6,800 more. Not in the treasurers, I think it goes down, and I'm not sure, and the DPW would be even, so.
Yes.
So it's all pretty, you know, as an aggregate, it's pretty
Revenue neutral.
revenue
Pretty
neutral.
revenue neutral.
And because you have younger folks coming in at lower steps, you have higher levels but lower steps.
That's correct.
I think and the result is that you have positions that will cost more down the road, but for the moment, you're setting yourself up for greater expertise, so.
Inefficiencies, absolutely.
So, I know people have some questions for you, and I know one of them was, gee, last year there was a $50,000 IT study sitting in your budget, and where do we stand with that?
I can give you an update on that. The town did go out to RFP for an IT strategic study. We received one bidder for that study. That one bidder was our current consultant. So we did not feel that that was a direction that we wanted to move in. Then it came to our attention that the Town Government Study Committee was looking at reconstituting the IT committee, and there's an article in this year's annual town meeting warrant to do just that, to create an IT study committee. It's a 5-member board, 3 members appointed by the moderator, 1 appointed by the selectmen, and 1 appointed by the schools, I believe. So our thought was to not move forward with the IT study. When we first talked about this last year, I did approach the IT director. I gave him the parameters of what we were looking for in the strategic study. He went out and spoke with some consultants about what they felt the cost of a study like that would be. And he got the figure of about $50,000. Since that time, we have consulted with other towns, because we had sent out, I think, a total of, we advertised the RFP, and then I think 7 packets were sent out to potential bidders. And we were concerned why we only got 1 bid back. So we reached out to some other communities that we knew were also in the throes of doing a strategic study. And they were telling us that they had funded between $100,000 and $125,000 for their studies. So at that point, we decided to take a step back to see where this new IT committee, the direction that it moves in, maybe this money's, this $50,000 that's sitting in our budget this year can be repurposed, reconstituted towards something else in fiscal year 16.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I'm basically not happy to hear that the $50,000 went nowhere, because because that was a huge priority for the Board of Selectmen and the school committee last year, and the warrant committee was prevailed upon again and again to fund that, and perhaps it was against our better judgment to do that because it hadn't been sufficiently backed up at the time. But it hasn't been frittered away, and it will perhaps get repurposed. So that's great. Anyway, it was an odd thing where the study, the request for the study was embedded in a regular operational budget instead of having its own article. So it went through pretty easily. But anyway, so any questions on this budget? Do you want to look at in any greater detail as to who's doing what upstairs? That would
Ted,
be.
if I could just follow up on your comment.
Sure.
I think the town Board of Selectmen and I think the Town Government Study Committee is still where the recommendation originated from. I think they're still committed to wanting and needing that strategic study, but I think that it was not prudent to go back out a second time for an RFP when we did some further research and found out that other towns were funding their IT study at twice what we were funding ours at. So.
Oh, no, I agree with what you did,
But
having gained that knowledge. I just wish that you had gained that knowledge before you threw it into your budget at 50,000 as an underfunded item.
Well, I thought that I had that number when
Right.
I put it in last
Right.
year.
No.
But I just want to go on record as the Board of Selectmen and I believe the Town Government Study Committee are still committed to wanting that study performed.
Well, it would be valuable to the town, I'm sure, and it just
Absolutely.
looks like it's gonna cost more than we thought it would. Steve? All set? Okay.
I got a question.
Sure, Mike.
My question comes from working for a big health insurance company that has 19 states plans. They do Medicaid insurance for different states. And their whole strategy is to have a very centralized IT infrastructure. So the mothership has all the IT, and these different companies in these different states are customers of this central thing. And it's kind of like, I guess, regionalizing garbage collection, or if you have some kind of a service that you could probably say, you know, what the IT needs of a town are very much like the IT needs of another town, then maybe, you know, could we piggyback on these other studies that cost $125,000 that these other towns are? Could we subscribe to all the studies and, you know, read them and see, you know, this is a pretty good idea. We'll do this, thank you. Yeah. We'll buy this
Reach out to the
software,
other
we'll
towns,
buy
yeah.
these servers, we'll buy. So my question is there any kind of leverage we could get from the other studies that have already been done? Or is that?
I would have to see what they were looking for from their study, what the criteria was in their RFP. And we can certainly do that. We can follow up with those towns that we've spoken to.
Okay. Thanks.
I think it'd be a great idea. So when we look at your budget, there are 3 vacancies listed on it.
Right.
And so I thought maybe you might want to tell us that fortunately one of them is no longer vacant.
One of them is no longer vacant. We do have an assistant town planner on board, has been on board for a while now, really immersing himself in the planning, reading all of the zoning requirements and building requirements. He's a great addition to the team.
Good.
So we are down to 2 vacancies, and as I had said earlier, they have been advertised, the deadline has passed. We are in the process of culling those resumes now, and I'm optimistic that we will have someone in those positions by mid-March.
So I don't remember what your advertising budget is. Do you have enough in this year's advertising budget to cover advertising for those positions?
Just said that, it's past the time period, so they just do resumes now. So, no more advertising for those positions.
Right.
You said there's no more advertising for those positions now, it's just what you have is what you have? Because the, period for taking resumes is over for those two positions?
That's correct, it's already been advertised.
Yeah, so it's already been done, so.
Yeah, but has the advertising been paid for?
Yes.
So you're not coming to us for,
I'm not gonna be coming looking for a reserve fund transfer, no.
great. Just checking.
No, that's what I'm saying.
You know. I mean, I think probably the Board of Health might come to us, and, because they have that much for an advertising budget. And in 14, you only used half of it, so, you have a reasonably healthy budget. Does anybody, there's not a whole lot here, but one of the questions we did have was about training. So you've put your training under contractual amounts, I think, the education.
No, that's a collective bargaining contractual obligation. In the collective bargaining agreement, I have to hold a certain amount of money aside for management union and clerical union employees that go to school.
Ah,
It's a reimbursement.
it's a reimbursement program, and none of it was expended,
No, but I have to each
Okay.
year put it aside.
just in case.
Yes.
Great. And then the MMA is,
It's contractual
dues.
because yeah.
right. I forgot to ask Amy in her budget for training, for the CVO. I think you had 1,500 in level service and 1,000 in sort of level dollar. You would maybe need some of that for your financial analyst?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to.
Because you didn't spend any money in 14 on training.
I didn't have time to go.
That's
Yeah,
what I
pretty
was
much.
afraid of, like, do I go to
But-
training or do I
Get this report.
Yeah.
do the capital improvement planning
And I
committee?
have continuing professional education requirements that I have to
right.
meet, so I'm using it this year, and I'll have to continue it. And yeah, two people in my office have already expressed, with the financial analyst has expressed an interest in going to, mainly some of the, they're not really expensive, but you can go to some training through some of the local CPA firms on UMass accounting, which is the Uniform Massachusetts Accounting System, which is a great training program for somebody new to kind of the municipal accounting world, as well as a refresher. I've gone to it almost every year I go, because you always learn something new, focus on something different. So I would use that for the assistant town accountant, because I'm encouraging her also to go to some of the same programs.
So is your budget sufficient?
Yeah, it would be a level service.
1,500? Okay, because one of the things we do want to look at is what is it above contractual level that's most important to you? And it sounds to me like that training piece is fairly important.
Yes, but what I put in for level, I guess I'm confused, what I put in for level service, I think I put more to them, because when my first couple of years, I had to get certified, so I attended a lot more training than I need now. Now it's more refreshers. I go to a lot of the Mass Department of Revenue training sessions, which are not as expensive, but I do go out to Amherst. I should be going to Amherst at least every other year, which is a 3-day conference. I'm going this year, so more than likely, if I go next year, I might not go overnight. I might only attend one or 2 days instead of the full 3. But there's things like that that I think the level service training budget is adequate.
Okay. Phil?
Emery, the fee for the MMA,
Mhm.
is that a straight membership fee?
Yes.
And what does that entitle us to?
That entitles the Board of Selectmen to attend Board of Selectmen training seminars. We go to the MMA conference, which we just attended in January 23rd and 24th, I believe it was.
Does it give you access to the salary surveys that they do?
Yes.
Do you use those?
Yep.
And is there any
And that,
consulting capability that they offer, or research capability in terms of just polling other communities and giving you information on things? If you're looking for information like that?
they have consultants on staff that you can speak to about certain ideas you have, and
Right.
whether or not they have any any knowledge of other towns that have done it, and what they think about it. The MMA is also coupled with the MMPA, and that's where the salary surveys are, that's where all that information is, and we now are online under Michael's MMPA membership we input all of our salaries as well onto
I was
their
gonna ask
website.
that,
Yes,
because
it's on.
why should they give you information if you're not gonna give
Yeah,
them information?
no, we do the same, so, yeah.
Okay.
So, you don't have a training item here for the selectmen. You do have an all other, which is a nice change from miscellaneous. But what is all other? Because you spent more on all other than you meant to in 14.
We spent, let me give you, I don't think I brought the breakdown.
You spent 12,000.
Yeah, I didn't bring the breakdown.
Budget was
on that.
8,400. Yeah, I mean, it's your miscellaneous category. I'm just kind of wondering, what is a Board of Selectmen miscellaneous? Oh,
It's unexpected, expenses that come in through the year. If I need to use a consultant for the cable contract renewal, I may pay for it under that all other account. It's, I think, unfortunately, I don't know why, but I don't have the page with me that breaks it down. So I'll have to get back to you on just what I spent last year on all other. It should
Well-
have been another page here.
It's no big deal. But if you have that page, that'd be
I'll get
interesting.
it to you. Unfortunately, I don't know why.
I'm just concerned that you will have 2 new hires.
Mhm.
I don't know if well, actually, you'll have 3. I don't know if the assistant town planner should be going to training, or I don't know if your new licensing agent should be getting some training.
The licensing agent will get training on the liquor licenses, but they will go right into the ABCC. They hold training seminars,
Oh.
and they are free. So that person will be going in there free of charge.
Like free. So maybe there's room in all other for
Yes.
training requirements?
I'm
if
sorry, I don't
you
have the
discover that-
breakdown, so it's just,
Okay.
it's escaping me what I
No,
paid
that's-
last year for it.
Well, yeah, but you didn't have anybody who needed training last year,
No.
and you have 3 people now, so I hope that covers it.
Mhm. I can get back to you on that one.
Any other questions on the selectmen's budget?
One question.
No?
Actually, it's not more selection budget, but more on the assistant town planner. Just a quick question, because that is the new position. What is the assistant town planner's marching orders right now? I know we had a big backlog and stuff. Do we have him on track as far as this is your marching orders for right now to get us caught up, or is he segmented into a particular? Okay, you're going to be out 40. What is
He
his?
works under the direction of the Director of Planning and Community Development. I believe he's gonna be in tomorrow night. So that's probably a question that he could answer better than I could, because he really doesn't even work in my office, they work across the hall. And
Right.
again, he works under the directors, so the director kind of sets his schedule.
Yeah, that's another budget that's kind of wacky, because there's a planning board budget, kind of mirrors the personnel board budget, and you have somebody and some expenses outside of sort of the normal chain of command, and I don't know.
Well, your Director of Planning and Community Development and your Assistant Town Planner actually work for the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Their directive is from the Board of Selectmen. They supply expertise and consultation to the planning board. The planning board's budget has one senior admin clerk in it that just supplies clerical support to the planning board. So that's why they're separated out.
But I believe she also, I believe the planning director and the assistant town planner are hopeful that her hours might be increased so that she can support their work more. So then it becomes, wait a minute, who's working for who? And
Yeah, it's kind of gray, because sometimes the duties kind of cross over between the two boards, so.
So, but we'll deal with that tomorrow. Okay. All right, so town reports. This is gonna take hours, I know.
It's a small budget, contractual budget.
Oh,
We print about 400 annual reports a year. They're sent out to town meeting members. We send give copies to department heads, library. We put it up electronically on the town's website. It's a guesstimate each year how much it's going to cost. It always is under the $6,300 figure, but you just never know how large the book is going to be. It depends on how much information each department puts into their annual report. So.
Lee Michael.
If we have 2 town meetings now, why do we only have one line for an annual town meeting report?
The annual report, it encompasses all of the town meetings in it. It's the big thick book. I think you're thinking of the warrants.
For the fall meeting, okay, all right.
You're thinking of the
The
warrants.
yeah.
So we have an annual town meeting warrant, and then we have a warrant for the fall town meetings.
Okay,
And you'll notice that in this budget, in fiscal year 14, the annual town meeting warrant was put under town reports.
right,
But we discussed last year that it really should be moved into the selectmen's E&R budget, because that's where the fall
and
town
that's where
meeting
the fall
warrant.
one is? Okay,
And, yeah, so
All right.
they should really all be in the same budget.
okay, thanks.
That's why I skipped the selectmen's E&R, and we'll go back to it, now that we know one of those crucial ingredients in it. So, yeah, the annual report is, it's got more stuff in there than I knew. It's a great publication, and it's really nice to have the printed copy. Are any left upstairs?
Yes, there are.
So if anybody on the committee would like one, that'd be great. Steve?
The number that you print, is that for all of the town meeting members? Is that statute that you have to do it? Because, you know, when you go to town meeting and hear all the binders crack open there, you can assume that a lot of people that get them don't read them. And I'm wondering if we could print a quarter as many or half as many and save that amount and then just have it on the website. Why does every town meeting member get and could they not opt in? You know, we put
used
down phone numbers and emails for town meeting members. Electronic copy of the report with your email or or a hard copy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. They used to have, I think it was 96 or 9,700 copies. We used to send it out to every household. And then a few years ago, the decision was made to put it up on the website electronically and just send it to town meeting members. I don't know if it's a statutory requirement or not that it has to go to town meeting members. I'll follow up and see if it is, and if it's not, that's probably a discussion that could be had by the Board of Selectmen.
Well, it may be that there's a minimum print run too, of, you know, a couple hundred copies or 300, and, you know, that might have been a factor.
Tell you, it is nice when you're doing research projects, to read some of those old annual reports. They really are.
I mean, they haven't all been digitized. And
No, we still have bookcases with them, and if you go over to the library, they have them.
I have 40 years' worth if you want to read any of them.
But they are a great resource.
Yeah, they are.
They really are, when you have to look back, when you're working on a project, you need to look back to find out something.
Yeah, the old warrants are fun to read too. Or, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say fun, they're informative. At any rate. So, Selectmen's E&R, we'll do the next budget. It's election and registration.
This is the part of the election and registration that falls under the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction. By statute, the Board of Selectmen appoint the poll workers.
Darnell.
Yeah, and we spoke about this basically about taking the selectmen E&R and putting it under the line item of elections in the clerk's office, and make that just so that everything, again, just condensing and putting everything apples with apples and stuff. And this is one of those things, I think if you put apples with apples and leave it there, clerk handles all this anyway. She deals with them, or clerk will deal with them. And this here actually can go away.
One less budget
to have to deal with.
Absolutely, you won't hear any argument from me on that suggestion.
Because it just, to me, it just makes more sense
No, I
to
agree.
have all election information in one place. And town clerk is one who officiates those elections.
And I have had a conversation with the town clerk about this, and she would be in favor of putting the two together so that we have a true apples to apples comparison on what elections cost.
So, what's to prevent us from doing that? Because I know this
For
comes
this
up
year,
every year.
I would want to go back to my board of selectmen and make sure that they're comfortable with doing that.
I mean, it would be, these costs would end up under the town clerk's control, budget. And the town clerk is an elective office, different from the Board of Selectmen. Is that the sticking point, do you suppose?
I don't know the history of why it's been separate for as many years as it has been. But I think it makes sense to put it all into one budget, even maybe if you put it all into one budget with both the town clerk and the Board of Selectmen signing it. You know, the town clerk can present it to the Board of Selectmen and they can both sign it.
Because over the last couple of years, the town clerk has rationalized that her budget in terms of election costs, so that she pulled all of her election costs out of other categories of expense. And so those lines could be read easily, and they're based on the number of elections. And it makes it much easier for anybody looking at the budgets to see what's going on. And this functions the same way, but it's sort of another piece, and you know, why we need it is
Right.
is a mystery. But at any rate, does anybody have any questions on this? It's pretty much a bill. We don't consider this controllable in any way.
Excuse me, will this
Steve.
bump up next year or the year after with the extended polling time? You know, the 10 days of voting. Because
Yeah, it's coming up.
Susan was talking about some increases, but I don't know if this reflects that or not.
That would be, that would be in the clerk's
In the
office,
clerk's
though, wouldn't it?
office.
Strictly.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
You don't need to have.
This budget just, like I said, is for,
Poll workers.
it's the poll workers, it's the DPW workers, that, take the equipment and set it up at the polling locations. It's to rent the trucks because the, polling equipment now is, voice activated, so in prior years, they used to be able to put them in open air trucks, but now they have to have, when they're transporting the equipment, they have to have, rider rental closed trucks in case of rain. This is an advertising because the Board of Selectmen have to advertise the closing of the warrant. It's the printing of the warrants, it's the postage to mail the warrants. So that's really what this budget entails, which support the election and registration. But as Phil said, that increase is in the town clerk's budget.
Paul?
Steve, I have in my notes that Susan said that would kick in fiscal year 17, the early voting stuff.
So, yeah, I mean, this does include the cost of the warrants,
Mhm.
this budget, and maybe that's why it's separate from the town clerk's office, but maybe the warrant could just be added to the selectmen's budget.
Well, I think you'd want to keep it in this budget because
Just leave it there.
it really relates. I think that, you know, we work well together, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't work together on compiling this budget going forward. I myself personally think it should be one budget, because then you have all the historic information in one location going forward, so.
So we can work toward that.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Super. Okay, we are, unless there's other questions,
I have one.
Lee, Michael, please.
I have a question for Amy, possibly on free cash, or do you not want to get into that right now?
Can we do it after we do unemployment and veterans?
Yes, I
Okay.
thought you were moving on, done.
No, we have two more budgets.
Okay.
And I'd like to get through those.
Yep.
And then.
I meant to ask at the end. I thought
Okay.
you were summing up.
No.
Okay.
I wish. Next budget is unemployment. And again, this is kind of a bill. It's $100,000. And so Amy's narrative is excellent, and it includes the detail on the actual expenditures in the past. And shows that our $100,000 looks like a pretty good target. And, hope it holds up. Is it holding up?
So far for fiscal 16, I don't.
15.
Yeah, I'm sorry, for 15, yes. And usually the majority of the claims tend to come in the summer, early fall, because of the teachers. I don't think I'm gonna be turning back a lot. I think it's gonna be pretty close to the 100, maybe a little over, a little under. But nothing like a few years back where it was significantly over.
Yeah, 2010 and 11 were.
That's when they
Large.
extended the benefits, I believe. When unemployment benefits were
Benefit can be
extended.
extended.
Yeah.
And then after that ended, it started to trail back, fall
Come
back.
back to normal.
Any thoughts on this subject?
I think we're good.
Okay, we have one last budget for tonight's contemplation. It's the veterans budget.
Veterans budget,
And
yeah.
how is Mr. Cunningham? Is he?
I'm happy to report that Mr. Cunningham is back at work.
Oh, he is?
After being out on a medical leave, yes. However, that being said, he is working out of the Randolph office because he has limited abilities on driving at this point. But he still handles the town of Milton 2 days a week. All of his clients go to the Randolph office and meet with him there. All of his phone here is forwarded over to the Randolph office.
This is probably the only example I know of for sort of regionalization of town services. Is that maybe right? At any rate, Michael, you're going to tell us about this budget if there's anything we need to know.
Sure, no. Again, this was put together at the time without consultation with the veterans agent. So, you know, I utilized this past budget's. Again, you know, benefits fluctuate, it can fluctuate year to year. You know, for example, unfortunately, we had this past fiscal year 2 veterans who, one who passed away, one who moved out of our service area. However, we did sign up 2 new ones who moved in. So, you know, you never know what will happen as they fluctuate.
And when Michael Cunningham was active, he was, part of his job is to find veterans employment.
Absolutely.
And if he's successful doing that, then they drop off the cash benefits. So, can you tell us, I forget, 75% of this is reimbursed
That's correct.
from the feds through the state?
Correct.
But it's a year trailing.
It's trails.
Right.
So, and it's, you know, I mean, of the cash benefit portion of the budget. So, anyway, last year we saw that it was trending down, and so we cut the budget substantially by $40,000, and it looked like we were right on the money. So we'll see where it goes this year. But I don't.
Where's it tracking for now, Mike?
Do we know?
I don't have that data. I can certainly pull that for you, though.
Okay, that'd be good. I mean, the first 2 years I was on the committee, it was always a reserve fund transferred to cover the increasing benefits that were being paid out, because the budget was, I don't know, $7,000. It was totally inadequate. So that budget was beefed up substantially, and then as soon as that happened, the demand on the cash benefit portion of it tailed right off. So, but anyway, any questions on this, Steve? Did you have one?
On this one.
Okay, all right. So great, so we have finished the budgets we were going to discuss tonight, and the next item on the agenda is a catch-all item for discussing the budget in general. So I would imagine that you don't mind sticking around for a few minutes. We might have apparently there are some questions for you. So I guess I would say, gee, we haven't met in a week and a half, 2 weeks. And the last time we met was on the 21st. That was the same night that the selectmen had a meeting. And after a bit of discussion, I gather, endorsed one of the scenarios that we mapped out and that we thought would be something we could get behind if there was no move toward an override by the elected committees. So, and that was, I don't know, the notorious scenario E, which uses a a chunk of free cash. And is that sufficient introduction for your question?
Yes.
Michael? Good. There you go.
So with regard to that conversation, Amy, I've heard several people say that it would be difficult to make the case for an override in the year that we're talking about because we're sitting on so much free cash. And my understanding from reading just one report from the Department of Revenue is that a prudent amount of free cash for a town to have is between 3 and 5% of their annual budget. And if that is an accurate statement, then I think we're at the minimum threshold for where we would want our free cash to be. And I was wondering if you could just clarify on that understanding and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that maybe we're not sitting on a lot of free cash. I think we might be sitting on the minimum that's expected of us to sit on.
I'm not familiar. I briefly read what you're referring to, but I didn't have time to sit there and digest it.
Mhm.
I didn't really understand that excerpt 100% that was sent to me, because it's my understanding you don't budget for free cash, so I don't know why they're saying it should be 3 to 5%.
Mhm.
So I would have to look into that more. The town historically has has presented a balanced budget, which means your revenue equals your expenditures. You're not budgeting for free cash. So that whole page was kind of confusing to me.
Okay.
So I'd have to spend some more time on it before I could really comment to it.
Great.
That's
I
fair
look
enough.
forward to the comment.
Yeah, I mean, and,
Oh, sorry.
no,
That was
Do
a
you-
DOR recommendation.
yeah, that's, I'll read it further, but yeah.
No, but my question is to piggyback what Lee Michaels has just said. Is this 1% of a 1% of $100 million budget is really not a conservative estimate when you're budgeting. I don't think at any place, and that's all we're talking about. And when they say when they're saying like, 2 to 4%, whatever the number was, they're saying like, that's just good fiscal policy. You're not trying to stretch. That's all they're saying. When I read that and when we look at that, all I see them saying is that you're not trying to stretch for every penny. You're not overestimating your revenues and your ability to pay your bills. So you're estimating like anybody else would estimate. I'm going to be bringing in X amount of dollars. I'm going to spend X amount of dollars. And I want to have some cushion. And I think, Amy, when we look at some of the numbers you pull together, you do that almost by rote. You give yourself that
Right.
cushion. And so to have free cash come back as $1 million or, $1.2 million, we're not really sitting on anything. It's just speaking to a conservative principle in budgeting. And to not do other things, not do the overrides, not do these things, because we're practicing good fiscal policies and estimates, to me, does not go hand in hand. You do the override because we're doing good fiscal policies, and you use that money that we have to take care of things that free cash or one-time monies are used to handling. We aren't doing that right now. We are not taking care of our streets like we should be. We're not offering services to other parts of the town like we should be. We're not doing things to keep the town, what I say, as neighborly as we could be, because we're spending that free cash on operational things. So when we say like, oh, we're not ready to do an override because of whatever reason, because we have this 1.2 million, what we need to do is do a better job of explaining to the populace here in the town that this is what we call is one-time money. It's non-recurring money. We don't know if this is going to be back next year. So to put it in a budget to pay somebody a salary, to put it in a budget of recurring costs is not good fiscal policy. And that's what the problem is when we tell people like, oh, we got this $1.2 million or whatever in free cash, let's use it and forego the override and not increase our operational spending or not do these things. That's not good fiscal policy. Because at some point, we're gonna crash. And Amy, you only can pull so many rabbits out of the hat. and you've been doing a great job. And Emery, y'all been doing a great job of trying to be conservative on your estimates. But again, what we're doing with the money that you're saving us is not good fiscal policy. And I think that's the problem when we look at it that way. And I think that's part of what I think Lee Michaels is talking about.
And I'd be interested to hear your reaction to that, of what you think is a good use of that one-time money.
I honestly am not going to comment on that because this plan is a collective plan of many parties, and to put me on the spot about that.
No. I'm not trying to put you on the
I'm not
spot.
gonna
I'm not saying
go there.
we put you on the spot. What I'm just saying is, I'm just want to bring it out to the town and to everybody else is that we're doing good things here. We're making good decisions here, but good decisions in the budgeting process is one thing, but when you reap benefits from those good decisions, you can do bad things with them. And I think we're doing bad things by turning savings or found money into operational money, which we cannot guarantee year to year. And that's a problem. And that's going to be a problem going forward.
To clarify, I wasn't asking you to weigh in on what the decision of the Board of Selectmen was, but as our town accountant, what is your understanding of what a prudent use of one-time monies is? Are they supposed to be used when you have them for reoccurring items or budgeted items, or are they supposed to be used for unexpected costs?
Well, if I might,
Sure.
that's the debate. The debate is all about, how do you get to a balanced budget and delivery of an acceptable level of service to the town? Because I think those are our two responsibilities. We have to deliver a balanced budget, and I'd like to think that we're doing our best to deliver an even level service, to the town from year to year. That isn't, doesn't suffer from a great deal of volatility. When you have a situation like ours, and you do have a lot of free cash, on the one hand, that's a blessing. It is indicative of, as Darnell was putting it, I think, good financial practice by, our professionals, and that's great. And so we reap the benefits. The Department of Revenue likes that because it shows that you're budgeting conservatively, and they think that's great. They don't tell you what you can do with it. So then you get into a situation where if you say, okay, we should put all this into the roads, which there'll never be enough money for the roads, but if you put it into capital projects, then you are also delivering a budget that is most likely cutting services, okay? If you happen to be at the year where an override would be indicated. We're at that year. An override probably is indicated. That's the conclusion we arrived at earlier. But because we have $2.9 million in free cash, some of which we can use legitimately, well, all of which I think we could use legitimately, but that's different categories. There are some items in the budget, sick pay buybacks, the 9-year revaluation costs, things like that are natural for using one-time cash. There are school materials that are natural for using one-time monies. You can put you can use one-time money for, which I'm proposing to do, for 200,000 worth of fiscal year 13 and 14 wage set-asides. So that's surely a one-time thing, because we're not going to see fiscal year 13 twice again. So I just think, you know, if we think our responsibility is to deliver not only a balanced budget, but one that guarantees some sort of, you know, acceptable level of service, and we're at the juncture where an override would be required to get there, is it responsible to say, no, we're gonna take this free cash and put it into capital projects and go for an override? Because if that override fails, then you will certainly be cutting those jobs, because you have to deliver a balanced budget. So that's, you know, that, I don't know. So if the political appetite isn't there for an override from the, you know, the school committee and the Board of Selectmen and people they talk to, like me, although I've been thinking an override would be a nice idea. And if the consensus is that it wouldn't fly, then maybe that's the responsible thing to do. Otherwise, you are introducing volatility right away to the level of service you're giving back to the town. And it just is difficult, you know, when we get to drive around on plowed streets. That's what good government does for us. If you don't fund that and you say, oh, we're going to have to cut the DPW of some positions, next time it snows, maybe you got a problem. So it's a balancing act. And I know that, you know, people feel strongly about it one way or the other, but bottom line in my mind is I think you have to deliver a responsible level of continuing service to the town, instead of giving them the hard choice between, you know, cuts or an override. If there's a way of smoothing it out, why not? So the consensus was, yes, maybe this isn't a great idea to forego the good things that could be bought with the free cash, but we will certainly go for an override next year. Who knows what the free cash situation will be like.
And that's one of the reasons why I brought it up, because there was unexpected free cash last year. There's unexpected free cash this year.
Mm.
It's possible. People are saying it's unlikely, but it's possible there'll be unexpected free cash next year. And if that situation happens again, we'll be sitting on who knows how much money, and I wonder if the appetite for an override will still not be there, and if we'll fall into a pattern of doing something that we might not supposed to be doing.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think you can fall into a pattern unless the free cash expanded. The free cash would have to go up as you started using it in order to continue that pattern, because essentially we're digging a $1 million
Borrowing
hole.
against, right.
Or 1.2.
Right.
And so the free cash would have to be 1.2 greater,
right,
not just consistent,
yep,
in order to continue down that particular path. And I think the idea is you know, regardless of where the free cash is, to try and educate people that it's really not usable, and probably we ought to institute a policy of not using it, but policies are tough.
yep.
You know, I mean,
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
I think
please.
the important part of the plan, if it goes forward, as it's been discussed, is that you have a strategic plan for the next year.
Mhm.
And without that, that's a different story. But you need to have a plan on how you're gonna make up for it, or how not necessarily replenish it all. I mean, but you need to have a plan, and that's why you know, we're putting forward this 2-year plan.
Mhm.
That's a really important part. If we're just using it and saying we'll worry about it when 17 gets here,
Right.
and I think everybody at, you know, in the discussions said, if it fails, we are looking at serious cuts, and
But
maybe
we'd be
this is
looking
just
at
delaying them a
those
year.
sooner or later anyway.
Right.
So,
So,
But
I
it's
don't know.
not like we do this every year. I think the town has great
Maybe we should do
sound
it every year,
planning.
you
No,
know?
but as Amy said, it's a 2-year strategic plan that everybody is embracing. And we don't use free cash every year. We budget conservatively, and we have a record of sound planning in the town. And so I think that, you know, we're using this strategy to get through 16 with the idea that we all have to go out, we all have to educate, and we have to really fight for the override in 17, and, you know, with the understanding that if that override doesn't happen, as Amy said, there's serious cuts on all departments.
Steve?
Well, yeah, the 2-year plan is better than a 1-year plan, but it's still an intermediate and not a long-term plan, which is something that has been, you know, apparently cooking around for a while, but we still haven't seen it. And long-range planning is definitely something that the DOR said that we should be looking at. So, you know, I would still, you know, I'm speaking for myself, but I know there's other folks on this committee that have had the same thought, that, you know, we want to see what that is, so that there is, you know, less of this herky-jerk and more of a, let's look out there and figure out what we're going to need to do and how we're going to address the capital and stuff. You know, even this year, it feels like the snow budget is going to get, you know, and probably the pothole budget too. So where's that money going to come from? And that's money that if you don't have the cash for it this year, it's going to come out of next year's budget. So it's a perfect instrument for use of free cash. And, you know, so if we under budget for that, or if we spend all the free cash before we know what that's going to be, we could put ourselves in a tough spot. The other area that I wanted to get into a little bit is that, you know, this committee makes decisions on where the money should go, and consistently looks to the policymakers and the elected policymakers to give us direction on which of the I'm losing my job,
Priorities,
Yeah,
you're
priorities,
always talking
thank
about
you,
priorities.
which priorities are the ones that they want to, and you know, you represent the selectmen, and I hope you'll take the message back to them that, you know, to have
Katie's right here.
a number of, I see Katie too, but Katie's one of 3, and I don't want to put it all on Katie. But you know, the selectmen oversee the second largest group of employees and programs, and so for them to approve all of the budgets with some increases and then just say, you guys who aren't policy people, you sort that out, that's putting on this group the responsibility to develop policy and say that we think that you know, an extra firefighter is more important than some other, you know, hiring or something that's under the selectmen's care. And those should come into us. Here's everything we need, and we've looked at it all, and we're not just passing through all the approved budgets. We've decided that we think investments in these areas should be the priorities, and if that means that for this year, because we're not gonna be able to do everything we wanna do, that you gotta trim it someplace else, that should happen. Instead, the things come in, the budgets come in, and we just get to sort them out. And, you know, that's not, you know, that's policy level decision, and this is not an elected body, and it's an uncomfortable spot to be in.
Well, let me comment first to the 5-year financial plan. The Board of Selectmen did charge me with creating a 5-year financial plan. I had a working group of the town accountant and the assistant superintendent for business. That plan was developed, and we were ready to go with it in October. The school committee wanted us to hold off on presenting that until they had a chance to talk about a 5-year financial plan that they wanted to have incorporated into our model. So we waited for that. That happened a couple of weeks ago. We updated our model. We, since October, have now got the fiscal 16 budget, so we also updated fiscal 16 real-time numbers. And I have sent out an email with 3 possible dates to present the 5-year financial forecast. And we're having trouble getting a date. I'm hoping by the end of the week to have a common date for the Board of Selectmen, the School Committee, and the Warrant Committee to present the 5-year financial forecast. With respect to the second question, the Board of Selectmen did ask me to take a look at the departments under the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction, talk to the department heads, and ask them where they felt they could make cuts in their budget for fiscal year 16. I'm in the process of doing that now. We'll have revised numbers for the selectmen.
So, in terms of, Anne Marie is looking at each department with the Board of Selectmen and the department heads to determine what they can cut from the request.
Mhm.
We generally take the position of, okay, we have a certain amount, perhaps a certain amount of money, what can we build up above contractual obligations? And we'll certainly look and see what their priorities are and see what we think about them. So, Darnell?
Can I ask you to, when you do your 5-year presentation, that you invite other boards that are not under the selectmen or the school, so that they are advised of what this 5-year vision is, because we do not want to be accused of not including other departments throughout the town and leaving them out, because they are very important to us.
Yes,
well.
I was asked to do that as well. So
Thank
once
you.
I get the common date, a notification will go out to the boards and committees, yes.
Anybody have any further questions about our immediate budget situation or our goals for this year? I mean, we are going to finish meeting with the rest of the budgets. As I'll send out an update on where we stand. There are a few numbers have changed. I do have a number now from Blue Hills. It is provisional. A couple of other numbers have changed, but they're fairly minor. We will need to look at what we can do on a very limited basis above contractual. There will be some things we can maybe get into tomorrow. Electricity, I think, has been underestimated across the board. So I think maybe there's a $30,000 problem there we have to address. I think the snow and ice is going to be a problem. But in addition to listening to the rest of the budgets and considering the new articles, we actually have to put the budget together. And in order to do that, we will need to determine what money is above contractual we might want to allocate to any of the budgets we're looking at, and what to do with the balance of free cash that is not gone to support the general budget, because there will be a bunch of that left, and of course everybody has an idea of what we ought to be doing with it, whether it's a list of priorities from the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. And I don't know if you want to give us a first cut at that now, Amy, or if you just want to email it and I'll circulate it.
I'd like to
That
wait
would
till
be fine.
Monday. We have
Okay.
another meeting scheduled, and I think the list may be revised.
You can
so-
come back anytime, and we're not
Okay.
ready for that.
And I also
Anyway.
haven't shared it with the Board of
Sure.
Selectmen yet, so I didn't want to give it to one committee and not the board, so.
Fine.
That's assuming you meet on Monday.
I know.
Right. Maybe I should post for Tuesday and Wednesday also.
Right, well, we are posted for tomorrow, which may be difficult. We are posted for Monday, which also may be difficult.
Monday's questionable right now. Tomorrow probably
Yeah,
fine.
Monday's.
Well, I'm not supposed to stick.
Ted, I do want to also mention that the Board of Selectmen, at their last meeting, did vote to put a ballot question, so we will be having an override this April for the Pickens.
Oh,
medical
right,
bill.
thank you for bringing that up.
Firefighter, injured firefighter medical bills.
Right, which is what frees up some of the free cash that otherwise would have to go to paying that bill in fiscal year 16. So that, you know, may allow us to shovel the snow. I think that's probably about it. So yeah. Any other questions? I really want to thank you, Anne Marie and Amy and Michael for coming in tonight, and thank you, Katie.
I'm just here to support them.
Yeah.
We are going to do this all over again tomorrow, and talk about deferred maintenance with consolidated facilities. So.
And weather permitting, I will be back on Monday evening with the Council on Aging Director.
Oh, great.
For her budget.
Okay.
Thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Grand. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, Julian.